How MCC assessment works. MCC evaluation is the most demanding work in the credentialing series. The question shifts from, is the behavior present, to has the methodology dissolved into artistry? In this video, we walk through the MCC assessment model, how the BARS framework adapts at the MCC level, what the 5-point scale measures, and how qualitative judgment replaces numerical scoring. At ACC, the scoring algorithm gave you certainty. Rate each statement, calculate the average, compare to 2.8. The math told you whether the coaching passed. At PCC, you moved to professional judgment about depth and consistency. No formula, but the marker language gave you anchors for your evaluation. At MCC, the assessment relies more heavily on professional judgment than any other level in the credentialing system. Understanding how it works shapes how you prepare candidates, and it validates why calibration is the essential mentor coaching skill. The progression across levels is deliberate. ACC uses a scoring algorithm because the question at that level can be answered with numbers. Did the behavior occur, and at what proficiency? Calculate and compare. PCC uses qualitative assessment because depth and consistency resist numerical capture. The evaluator describes a pattern rather than computing a score. MCC uses assessor consensus and holistic evaluation because artistry cannot be reduced to either numbers or individual qualitative judgments. It takes multiple experienced evaluators comparing their independent professional determinations to arrive at a defensible conclusion about whether the coaching represents mastery. 2 coaching recordings. That's what the candidate submits for the performance evaluation. At least 2 assessors review each recording independently, without coordinating during the review process. The outcome is binary, pass or below passing standard. Pass requires majority assessor consensus that the coaching taken as a whole demonstrates MCC level mastery. Taken as a whole is the key phrase. A recording might have individual moments at below and moments it exceeds. The determination is about the overall quality. Does this session holistically represent MCC level coaching? Assessors do rate each behavioral statement using the 5-point scale. They go through the 21 statements and assign ratings with evidence. But the pass-fail determination is not a computed average of those ratings. There's no MCC equivalent of the ACC 2.8 threshold. The assessor rates each statement, reviews the pattern across all competencies, considers the 3 evaluator considerations, and makes a professional determination about mastery. This is the most judgment-reliant assessment in the credentialing system. And it's why your calibration practice across modules 7 through 9 is not supplementary learning. It is the skill that makes your professional evaluation reliable. You've encountered the C1 disqualification gate in the MSR video, and it matters again in the assessment context. If assessors determine the coach is primarily in consulting mode or therapeutic mode, the recording is disqualified entirely. Not rated low on C1, removed from consideration, regardless of how strong C3 through C8 might be. The qualifier primarily matters. Brief step-outs from coaching happen naturally in any real session. A moment of sharing relevant expertise or exploring an emotion doesn't trigger disqualification. Sustained departure from the coaching role does. For your candidates, they need to understand where the line falls. Separate from the performance evaluation, the credentialing exam is a written assessment scored on a 200 to 600 scale with a passing threshold of 460. All 8 competencies are weighted roughly equally in the exam design. The performance evaluation must pass first. Both components are required for credential award. For your mentor coaching work, the exam falls outside your scope of preparation. Your contribution is preparing the candidate for the performance evaluation, helping them understand where their coaching sits on the BARS scale and which competencies need attention before they submit recordings. The absence of a numerical threshold is a deliberate design decision by ICF, not an oversight or a gap in the system. MCC assessment acknowledges explicitly that artistry cannot be captured in a formula. The credentialing body recognizes that at the highest level, the evaluation must be human judgment, informed by a framework, not a calculation constrained by one. This is why your calibration practice is not optional professional development. It is the professional competency. The more calibrated your judgment becomes, the more useful your developmental feedback to MCC candidates. You will not administer a performance evaluation. That's ICF's role with their trained assessor panels. But you will prepare candidates for that evaluation, and that's where your MCC BARS fluency pays off. Understanding the assessment model means you can translate your BARS observations into language that maps directly to the evaluation criteria. You can say, based on what I see in this recording, assessors would likely find C7 at meets but C4 at below. Here's the specific evidence, and here's what I'd want to see shift before you submit. That translation from developmental observation to assessment readiness is the practical value of understanding how MCC assessment works. At ACC, certainty from arithmetic. At PCC, judgment anchored by marker language. At MCC, consensus among experienced evaluators with no numerical guardrails. The assessment model gets more demanding at each level, not just for the candidate, but for the evaluator. That's exactly why you've spent 3 modules building calibration skill from ACC through PCC to MCC. Calibration, not checklists, makes MCC evaluation reliable. In the next video, you'll see how to use that calibration developmentally, translating your BARS observations into feedback that helps a coach move from PCC depth to MCC artistry.